Hi, welcome to this video. This is a game called Cards. I'm doing a quick explanation on what building a deck is and what the cards mean and do. So the first thing we'll do is come over here to new deck. If you're just starting the game, it might be down here or it might be over here underneath your starters. When you do build a new deck, you get to choose your main nation, and these are the majority of the cards you get to put into your deck. Later I can go over the specialties of each country and why you'd want to choose one as your main nation. For this example, we'll just do Japan, and then you just select your ally, which is kind of like a little extra few cards you can throw in, but you can only have up to 40 cards. So this basically means that 12 cards could be of a different nation, and 28 cards could be your main nation, or you could have just 40 cards in your main nation and none in your ally. For this case, we'll just do a Japan-Germany deck. Your main nation shows up as your card back, which you can customize with a bunch of different stuff, and it gives you your main HQ. Your HQ is basically the health that you have, and if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, it is your health, and like Magic the Gathering, you have 20 health. The really cool thing about this game is it gives you history on why this card or this name of the HQ is important and what the history is, which I really enjoy as a history buff. So that's your HQ, and this is your card back. The card back doesn't affect the game. The HQ doesn't affect the game. Every HQ has 20 health. But there are cards where you can gain health, and there's cards that make you lose health. So I'll start off with a pretty basic thing. Go to the top and search for any card that you want. Let's say just the 33rd. Ooh, I misspelled that. 33rd, and it's all cards that relate to the 33rd recon or whatever you want to search, which is really handy if you're looking for a specific card. But you can narrow it down even more by selecting Infantry, which are identified by these little logos in the middle of it. And Infantry are just your basic foot troops where you play them, and it takes a turn before you can play them and move them, I guess, and attack with them. Artillery are types of units that you can play, and they don't require to be moved up to the front line to attack troops. They can be in the back line and shoot troops. Tanks are special because they can move and attack in the same turn, whereas infantry cannot. Infantry can just move or attack unless they have a special ability. Your bombers are similar to artillery, where they can be in the back and attack, but the only downside of a bomber is that if the other person has a fighter and the any line that they have, you cannot attack any troops in there except for the fighters. So bombers are really good if there's no fighters. They're really good. They do damage to the fighters. Downside of a bomber is if a troop moves up, no matter what the troop is, if they attack your bomber, they take no damage. So that's a big downside. A fighter, as I just said, counteracts a bomber, and a fighter can attack from any position, the front line or the support line. And they all have special abilities, which is really useful. And here are your orders, and they're kind of similar to these. You play them, it instantly happens, and whatever it says on the card, it will do. So like you can boost how much attack damage someone does, how much damage they can take, or you can just deal damage to their HQ. Orders are really, really helpful. Countermeasures are really interesting in this way that you spend credits and it will activate with some requirement. I'll just show you with this card. Basically, if a unit plays, or if the player, your opponent, plays a unit, it will do 3 damage to that unit. So it will directly damage it before it even plays, or once it touches the field. But then you can filter it more and just specifically show Japan, Germany, or you can show Japan infantry, German infantry. These are your filters. And then there's this option to show all, which show the cards that you don't have, and you could get those with cards that you earn through playing. And I have, oh, let's see, quite a bit. I have these, and I can spend them on cards that I don't have. But I typically just show the cards that I do have, um, yeah, and build a deck off of that. So we'll just do some pretty basic cards and why I play them. So when I look at these first options, I see that these are orders, countermeasure, order, infantry, and infantry. And let's just say I just want infantry. That's where I would select up here. So now looking at these options, these little, I guess, squares represent how many of these you can have in your deck. So typically, like in Magic, you can do four of a type, depending on what you play. But typically, you can only have 4 of one card. Whereas in Cards, if you only can play one card, where it shows here, this is showing that I can only play one. I can only have 1 in my deck. Same here, I can only have 2. Here I can have 3, and here I can have 4. Typically, the more powerful the card is, or the more it does, the less you can have in your deck. But either way, it completely depends on how you want to play. Typically, I will choose this unit because it has a 1 credit cost, 0 operation, and it has blitz, so the instant I play it, I can move it. And I typically put all 3 in, because why not? This is a newer card that I just got. It's an elite, and every time one of my units dies, I do damage to the HQ, which is really good. So I'll put that in. This is another card that I really like to play. And basically, if it takes any damage, I draw a card, whereas normally I just draw a card at the beginning of the game. This allows me to take a card if this unit takes any damage. So it's a really good early game card if you get it. And I'll put both of those in there. Yeah. Typically, I don't do any of these cards. This card is really good for like a discard deck, or in Magic, you would call it like a milling deck. At the end of the turn, draw a card, draw and discard the top card of your deck. So there's some cards where it says if discarded, you play it, or if discarded, card goes to your hand or something. So this is really good for a certain type of deck. But this is not the type of deck that I'm building, so I don't want to play it. This card here, all friendly ground units in the front line gain 1 defense, is a pretty good basic card, but I'm not running a kind of a defense deck where I want a lot of defense. But it's really good for German decks. This one has a special ability called Pincer, which basically connects this card to another card. I'm going to throw this card in here because I get an extra credit, which is always really good. And here it shows that I only have, let me put this back up so it makes more sense. Here it shows I only have 1 out of 2. I can actually click this, and if I want to create another card, I could if I had a what they call wild cards. But as you can see, I don't have a wild card to spend for a German card, but I do have a American special card. So if I was running an American deck, I could get an extra one if I really wanted to, but you really only need 1. And this is also an Alpine card, which is not necessarily complicated, but not really what I'm like. It's not really important for this deck to know what it does. This is pretty good if I'm running out of cards and the player has more cards than me and I just want to do some extra damage. This is good to counteract a deck that I'm building to get defense and guard. And guard basically protects the units around it and the HQ around it. Here's what's really important about the game is, even though the image kind of looks like a tank, it's important to know that the logo or the center emblem is a infantry unit, so it acts like an infantry and not a tank. If I'm running a tank deck and I play this, I could reduce it, but I'm not running a tank deck, and I could just have 1 tank in the game. This one I'll add because I get an extra card, like the 33rd Recon. I get an extra card when normally I wouldn't, and yeah, that's pretty cool. This all is pretty cool. I typically add this guy because he does 2 damage to a random unit when he dies. So if the enemy attacks this unit, they take damage from this unit, and then afterwards this guy does 2 damage to a random unit, including it could be the HQ, which is always really good. This guy's really good just for like early game, except he costs 3, so I don't typically have him on my deck. But yeah, I'll continue building this deck, and I'll come back. I wanted to quickly jump in and just mention my preference on adding damage to certain units. So this is one of my favorite cards of all time because it gives all friendly units across the board +1 attack. Doesn't matter if they're a tank, if they're artillery, if they're a plane, whatever, it just gives +1 attack. And I'll show you another card that does the same thing, but it says infantry, so it only gives infantry +1 attack. And this one, you know, it has its benefits. It's a 3 cost, but it's a 3/3 instead of a 1/1, which this one is. But I much prefer this over this because it's just across the board and not specific units. If you notice, if I select Japan and countermeasures, Japan has no countermeasures. It has some, I think. Let me actually show all. No, it has none. So that's why I selected Germany. Is Germany has really good countermeasures, and it's a good pairing. So typically I'll add this one, which destroys a unit and lets me draw a card, which is always fun. This one's really good. Let's do that. And I just created a card there because I need to fill up the 2 left. And if you notice, I did 12 and 28, which is a good split. Okay, so once you're done selecting all of that, you can look down here. You can name your deck. I'll just name this test deck. And you can, as I already stated, you can change the card backs and stuff and make it more customizable. And I don't have other options for HQs because I haven't spent a ton of money on this game. But here you can see I have 40 out of 40. If I add another card, it tells me I have too many cards, and it also gives me a red here because I have more than 12 cards for my ally. But as you can see, I did a 28-12 split, and then I typically go here and just look at this data that it gives me, and it just gives me a good idea of what I'm playing with. So I have 21 units, 18 orders, and I have countermeasures in there and a bunch of stuff, but as you can see, it kind of ramps up as I go. I have no 0 costs, but a lot of 1 costs, so pretty much I'm guaranteed a 1 cost on my starting hand. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys want to go look at this game. I'll put this link in the description so you guys can go play it. It's free on Steam. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but it's free on Steam, and it's a ton of fun. You can build up decks, and very similar to Magic the Gathering if you enjoy that, so I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, that's about it. Go check it out, like and subscribe. Yeah, I'll be posting more videos on this, playing with different nations and allies. As you can see, I have 115 packs, and I'm trying to get up to like 120, 130, and then I can do like a pack opening thing. So that's another fun thing about this game, is there's some collectibles and stuff. But hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and talk to y'all later.